Hey, what is going on, guys? Happy Monday to everybody. Hope you're having a great week. Today, we got a great podcast for you. We've got Jeremy from Techthusiasm. What's going on, Jeremy?
Awesome. How's it going? I'm super excited to be here.
Yeah. We are good, man. Joe, good to see you. Aaron,
What's up?
Chana is on location, so he's doing his gig tonight. He said he may be able to pop in just for a little bit, so we'll see.
Yeah,
man.
Sure. He's probably reaping all the probably stealing all the money from the spatial CD.
Selling discs out of his van.
Yeah.
That's right, dude.
Yeah, of a white van. That's how Ludacris got his start. Sold them out of the back of his trunk. 50,000 sold, $7 a pop.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. Lots of sales. So
yeah, congrats.
John is happy with that.
Yeah,
I'm not paying attention. I don't look at all.
I wish I could believe you. And I feel like you're probably telling the truth, but at the same time, I'm like, I don't know.
No.
Joe said he's good at spending money. He doesn't count it.
Nope. I don't look.
Yeah, Joe, didn't you tell us that like Angela spends so much money that you're trying to come up with all these schemes that you possibly can?
She spends so much money. Yeah.
Oh, wait, she's here. I'm sorry.
Hey. No, it's the opposite.
I'm just
kidding. Spend the money. I'm the one buying all the toys. But yeah, so you guys have you guys all met in person?
Jeremy and I and Aaron actually met for the first time together at Audio Advice Live.
Yeah, it was a good time.
Jeremy, how are these guys like, in person? I've met Michael in person. I met Aaron, but what did you think?
I would say Michael's a really nice guy, and it's even since we met, like just having questions about YouTube and doing all this stuff and chatting in the background. It's like so appreciate just open and willing to help, willing to share. And Aaron's a super fun guy too. I definitely appreciate Aaron's sense of humor because it hits a lot like mine. So
all right. Yeah, man. So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? Like, what do you do for, I know you have a YouTube channel where you talk about home theater, things like that. So we'll get into that. But I want to know more about like how'd you get into it? Like just give me a quick background thing.
So I'm a computer engineer by day, bachelor's in computer engineering, and I've been a software developer manager now for 20 plus years. I work at a company where we make like some pretty high tech computational software. We were just talking about this, does everything from launching spaceships to autonomous driving and all kinds of things in between. So like computers, technology. I started as an ME, mechanical engineer. And when I got my hands on my first computer, I'm like, oh no, like I think this is what I want to do. So I set off in that direction. And always been a tech lover. And back in college, reading like the home theater magazines, Stereophile and all that, I knew like AV hi-fi was an element of technology that I really wanted to get into when I had some money to actually do it. So way back in 2000, my wife and I, we got married, we built our first house, and I had in our living room, 92-inch 5.1 projection setup with like the first Sony 1080p projector, while everybody else still had 25-inch CRT televisions at home.
Right.
And, since then, so been doing this hobby for 20 years. And several years ago, we built the house that we live in now. And along the way, or 4 years ago, converted a room to a dedicated home theater, DIY'd that project, overhauled it again. And as I've been kind of, I'd say, enjoying the hobby and doing stuff in the space, started like talking to people, talking to some companies, making some connections and all that. And then early last year, kind of decided, I kind of want to do something in the social space with this, like get involved with a podcast or whatever. And after kind of looking at everything, figured, YouTube looks pretty good. And I had just finally gained some like video editing knowledge and such. So last June, I put Techthusiasm together. I kind of founded the channel on the idea that I talk like a mix of tech. It's not just home theater, but I've got a Tesla. So I'm like, we'll talk about the Tesla, mobile devices, computers, and home theater was going to be a part of it. But it's really the home theater stuff, AV, hi-fi stuff that really took off and in the channel itself. So I guess in the terms, right, I'm kind of niched the channel down more specifically into the home theater. But when I started the thing last summer, I had some thoughts or hopes maybe kind of where it might take me, but where everything is at now, like just being here, with you guys and channel just turned 5,300 subs in a year and a half.
Congratulations,
today. So
man.
I got a long way to go to catch up to you guys, but I'm like, it's just been such a crazy year. Like the benefits, the change, the learning, and just all the fun that we've been, like the whole household's been having. My son even started with my help a YouTube channel. He does like
Very
stop
cool.
motion Lego things. And
Yeah, you
so
showed me
it's
some of
like-
that. That's pretty awesome.
yeah, so really, it's been a really profound experience doing this and crazy fun. So
Yeah, you have some pretty nice toys too. I've seen. You know,
Yeah.
do you have a Trinnov? Is that
I had my hands on a Trinnov. That
Okay, I
wasn't
thought-
mine. So yeah.
all right? All right. Yeah, I thought I saw some. I know you have the Kaleidescape.
Yep.
So
Yeah,
you
my-
got some nice
My
toys.
my theater setup, JVC projector, Seymour screen. I got all Focal 1000 series in walls, some Anthem processing, Parasound amplifiers. Got the K, Apple TV, custom gaming PC. It's all treated and finished and all that. Need some theater chairs. I really regret the couch over the theater chairs.
See, Jessica would love me to switch out theater
Yeah.
chairs for
Now
a
the-
couch.
The family
Yeah.
wants the couch, but like,
Yeah.
Go ahead. You could plug Valencia if you'd like, Michael. I know you're like the main Valencia.
It's crazy, man. I've only made like 6 videos for them, but they have sold so many stinking chairs. We're
Yeah,
talking like
nice stuff.
$550,000 in theater seats.
Wow.
When I
It's
saw that, I'm like,
Those
whoa,
videos.
It's
that's
insane.
crazy.
That is
And I don't even tell people to buy them. I'm like, look, these are cool chairs. If you're interested, you know, like we all do. Hey, here's a link down in the description. And
Maybe I
so
should replace this chair with like a Valencia chair.
that'd be dope, man.
Maybe, you know what I mean?
There you
Like
go.
every single chair I'm in is like a Valencia chair. That's what I need to
All
do.
over the house.
That's funny.
Oh man, you know, because I did have some questions about the Trinnov. How long did you have that? And you know, were you able to get a good idea since you do software stuff? And
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I had it a few months, I think, altogether. I had it because a friend of mine, local friend of mine now, Dan DiCarlo, I've had him on my channel a couple times. We've live streamed together, but he's a custom integrator, home theater installer here in Southeast Michigan. And I met him when we built our house. Our general contractor recommended Dan as basically the tech sub for the house. So he did all of like our network wiring and all the like, you know, techie infrastructure basically of the home. And we hit it off as kind of friends right off the bat, into the same interest and all that. So he had that actually come through his hands kind of for like another client, another project of his. And he's like, I'm gonna have this Trinnov for a little while, and I don't need to put it in the install yet. You want to play around with it? I'm like, yes, please. I'll come get it right now. Where are you?
yeah,
So yeah, I put it in, and it's kind of funny actually, because I think that was some of the earliest videos I think that I put out on the channel a year ago. And in some ways, I think I was a little hard on it because I struggled with the UI a bit. And I think that one of the things that I talk about, I think a lot with my content, is coming from a development background and kind of understanding, as a computer engineer, right? Understanding software. I build interfaces, I build UIs and oversee the construction of those all the time. So I think I've got a pretty good design sense for like the way software should look, the way software interfaces should operate, and the way that they should present themselves and be intuitive and so on. And I found the Trinnov to be a little tough to use actually, but the kind of the saving grace to it is that interface isn't meant to be a really nice thing for an end user. Like Anthem, in my opinion, has one of the best device interfaces around. Like the web UI is excellent. Trinnov is a lot more raw. It's really made for the integrator to work with as a power user that knows the ins and outs. And so it wasn't designed kind of with that sensibility in mind. But I mean, that device itself is such a powerhouse. And I would say I only barely scratched the surface of it because I kind of tinkered with it on my own for a bit. Yeah. So I had to learn a couple things as I was playing. I think a regular, full-blown Trinnov install would be properly supported and be hands-on with a pro that knows the ins and outs of the device and what they're doing with it. But
yeah, well, I always say, the hardest thing is to make something simple. And I've read through the manual on Trinnov, and I'm like, that does so much.
Yeah.
That in order to make that look really easy for just a normal person, they're gonna have to like close off. Like, okay, don't look at this. This is just too much. There's got to be a simple and an advanced section. There's just no way to simplify that much.
Yeah.
In my opinion, there's just a lot of stuff that it can do.
Right.
So it's I get why, I don't think they have a huge team also.
Mhm.
Yeah, I've seen the same back end of Storm Audio is very similar to that. It's like you look at it and you're kind of overwhelmed. Like, what do I click on? There's I mean, you can do just about everything in it, but you got to know what you're doing.
Yeah,
So
it's made for somebody that's been trained on it, really.
Yeah, for sure.
I do have a question about the remapping because I'm very curious how that works. I've never actually played with a Trinnov, but their whole thing is, I don't know if they say this specifically, but they make it sound as if you can put a phantom speaker somewhere. If you don't have a speaker here, we can create a speaker there. We can just make it seem like it's that. Now, would you say that it's actually making a phantom speaker, or is it just routing the correct signal to the speakers based on where they're at? Because those are two different things, right? Let's say if your speakers are not in the optimal place, all right, well, route the signal based on the angle that it's at, etc. That's different than I'm going to create a phantom speaker somewhere where it's going to trick your brain into thinking the speaker's actually there. What do you think?
I think if I recall correctly, like the way the software worked, there is like kind of that 3D map, and you get the little boxes, and you can place things around, right? And I guess manipulate and manage more so, I think, where things are routed in terms of like controlling the system and sending certain sounds certain places, rather than creating like specifically phantom elements, if I recall correctly. But that's a little bit under the umbrella of like the more advanced features that I didn't get too far into. Like I did a lot of the general setup. I ran the optimizer. They had this, the crazy multi-prong microphone that is more expensive than most most preamplifiers on its own. And kind of ran through the systems like that, and then just ran with whatever kind of base calculations and such that it made from that pass.
Okay. Yeah, it's just I'm kind of messing with something like that on my computer system, where I can kind of reroute things to where they're supposed to go, right? And it was one of the topics that I brought up last time, where on Dolby's panner, we've been making stuff in Atmos, and if I pan something hard left, that's at minus 45 degrees on the visual panner, and then right is 45 degrees, right? But we're told that left and right is supposed to be at 30 degrees, which is interesting because, visually I'm thinking that it's going to go, angularly. So 0 center channel, and then 45 degrees is where I think right is visually. But then I have to think to myself, hold on a second, where am I supposed to put this thing, really? Right? Because this is, if I pan hard right, that's going to go to the right speaker, which is probably going to be at 30 degrees. So what happens? What is correct? Right. And I was wondering if that's maybe what Trinnov was able to do, is maybe make that correction where it says like, okay, I know that you initially wanted over here. I know the speaker's here, but I'm gonna add a little bit of surround right, or right wide, to kind of put that at the right angle. I guess some test tones would verify that. If I play right signal, is it going to play only out of one speaker, or is it going to play a little bit on that other speaker there to kind of fill it in? Any ideas?
Yeah, I think I believe that that's what the calculations are trying to do. But I'm not, I don't want to completely misstate what it's doing. But my understanding is that engine is based a whole lot on figuring out where things are supposed to go, and engaging the field that you have, the speaker array that you have to make those splits and put things to the best of its ability with far more horsepower than anybody else has, beside maybe Storm.
Right. It actually doesn't take that much power on the computer. It's something that you kind of have to do once, but it's not dynamic. It doesn't have to change too much once it's figured it all out. So anyway, why is everybody so surprised that you're smiling? Is that something? Is that a thing that I don't know about? That you?
It's the engineer in you, man.
I don't know. Are you talking about me?
He smiled. Like, what is that? He smiled.
I said Aaron is smiling.
Oh, Aaron doesn't.
Oh, he was saying both. He said we must be doing something right. We got Jeremy to smile.
Oh man, how do you make the engineer smile? Is that like a
I feel like that's a riddle.
Yeah.
formula.
How do you make them smile?
No.
You don't. They don't.
Yeah. I don't know. They have to talk to one another. They probably say something like real smart, and all of us are like,
Beep boop.
It's just code, man. It's up here.
Talks
They're
in
so
binary.
intelligent, Joe. They don't even have to talk. It's just it's going from crap, wherever that one to that.
Yeah, that's exactly.
yeah. Just data, just pure
That's
data.
right. It's just transmission, man.
I'm blinking. I'm blinking too.
It's the blink rate. Got that? All right.
Beep, beep.
All right. So anything else with the Trinnov calibration before we get off that topic that you thought was like, oh, that's something different, or maybe a result that like that sounds different than my existing system in better or worse way? What did you notice? Because we don't all get to play with Trinnov, right?
Yeah.
Correct.
So that's the reason I'm so interested.
Yeah, I know, but it's tough because I'm going off acoustical memory. That's close to a year old now. What I can say is I pulled out a Marantz AV7704 to put the Trinnov in, and things definitely got more cohesive, I guess. I think the Trinnov was a very clear winner over what Odyssey and that was doing at the time. I think since then, in this year in particular, I've gotten a lot better at, I guess, concepts of audio calibration, and mostly because I've spent a lot more time with Anthem ARC than I did with the Trinnov. So I'd really love to actually get my hands on a Trinnov again, because I think I'd be in a better position now to give it more of an evaluation than the first time.
Makes sense.
But it's the pinnacle.
Yeah, well, I figure for the price,
Mm-hmm.
I don't care if it was a year, 2 years ago, you better hear that difference. That's the way I would feel. It better be noticeable. Like, oh man, it's amazing.
I think too, one of the other things that the impression that I left with it as well is like, if you have a really complex space, right?
Mm-hmm.
And particularly you're using all like 15 channels or umpteen 20 channels that the thing can support. And you really need that extra power and extra capability to manage a room at that level, then that device is doing more. So in my opinion, I kind of gave it back to my friend with an idea that like, I've got like right now 7.2.4 setup, at least in my current space. I'm not going, to 15 channels. I might add a couple more subwoofers at some point, but my room doesn't really have anything all that super challenging with regards to it. Like my speakers are kind of all in the right spots. So, I think in some ways all that extra capability is a little bit lost on a system of where the room is pretty solid. The speaker count is, still up there, but manageable. So
I hear that.
My general take is I think my end game processor would probably be an Anthem AVM90, and I'd be set for a long time.
You have the 70 now?
Yeah. Yep.
So do you think that the 90 is that much a bigger jump from the 70?
So
like what would the 90 have that you don't currently have that you'd really like to have?
Yeah, the key would be going from having ARC able to independently manage from 2 subwoofers to 4. And right now I only have 2 subs, so I'm not missing that. But at some point I'd like to do quad subs in the room as I have it now, and the 90 would do that. But I would be really interested to kind of hear the 90, because a lot of the conjecture about the 90 being better is based on build quality, guts, DACs, some of the things that in a lot of cases like people would kind of disregard, whether is there really a quality difference there. But the thing that keeps hitting me is like listening to or reading other owners talk about it. The ABS Anthem 7090 thread is pretty active, and there's a pretty common theme, I would say, that's there, that people that went from a 70 to a 90 appreciated what they heard, and the impact that it made. That maybe there's some hopeful individual bias there. But I also have an Anthem STR, like their high-end like 2-channel preamp that I run my living room stuff on, and I actually bought that from a guy on ABS that had a 70 and the STR, and he was running them in like the home theater kind of bypass mode, and he tried out a 90, and sold both of the other two. So real critical music listening guy sold his STR and said, no, this 90 is like good enough for real hi-fi music for me that I'm just going to stick with one processor. So, and I feel like I've seen stories like that fairly repeated through the bulk of this year. So
I've got the AVM 70 in. I've still got to get that set up and calibrated and everything. So I'm excited to check out Dirac Live again, because kind of like you, my first experience was many years ago. They sent me the MRX 1120.
Okay. Yep.
So that was an AVR at the time, but it had Dirac Live. First experience with Dirac Live. And it didn't do a real good job with my setup. It was really difficult even just to get the initial trims, because at that time I had clipsless scalas. They're really, really efficient. And so it was struggling with that. Like, it didn't know what to do with it. And so I finally got it set up, and it just it was before, what version of ARC are they on now? Genesis?
It's called Genesis. Yeah. The current version is like 1.6.10.
So the one that I had several years ago was pre-Genesis. And so I don't know how much has changed. So I'm curious to see how would, because I still have efficient speakers. I'm just curious, like, how well will it do in my setup now?
Yep.
But I'm excited to check it out, man. It looks gorgeous. It's a sweet piece.
Yeah.
So it's cool to hear that you've been enjoying it. It's been pretty rock solid.
Yeah, I love the Anthem stuff. There's been some elements that don't work super great as well. I struggle a little bit with the network connectivity. Needs a little bit of work. I've had a couple issues, like getting some firmware updates, and there's a really weird I think bug. I don't know whose side it's on, but to actually get like the ARC software to connect to my STR, I have to unplug my Control 4 controller, because something is in like the network exclusive mode and it's kind of blocking the access. But from an overall usability and audio quality perspective, I'm super happy with that. Anthem as a brand. Happy enough that I bought the 70, and then I wanted to get the STR for the living room. But if you need any help with Genesis, let me know, because I feel like I've done a lot as well, kind of figuring out how to use their tools in a better way and make some customizations in the curves. I think universally there's like a need for some bass boost and kind of some tilting of like the default curve is a little too flat. But I think it does a great job with the focals. And
that was one of my biggest complaints with it, is the way I described it in my review is that it kind of sucked the life out of my bottom end. Like, it was just gone. And I even contacted Anthem and said, hey, am I missing something? Because I'm really new to Dirac. So they said, hey, send us the ARC file, which that's really cool.
I'm getting confused because you keep saying Dirac and
I'm
it's
sorry.
ARC, yeah.
You're
It's
right.
ARC,
You're right. ARC.
Okay.
I've done that again. I've only had it once. But you can send them the ARC file and they can make tweaks to it, send it back to you. And so they did that, and it was a little bit better, but I was like, man, I was missing that, just that bottom end. It just kind of pulled that out. So I'm really, like I said, I'm really curious to see if ARC, the new ARC Genesis, will be a much, improvement in that area.
Yeah.
So
Stay tuned, because we've been announcing lots of stuff. Sean and we announced our spatial audio calibration toolkit. I've been working on some stuff also, because exactly what you said, Michael, all this calibration stuff is awesome. It does timing, all this stuff, but if you don't get the target curve correct, and you're not getting enough bass, nobody's gonna like that.
Yeah.
And I think that's the main problem with most of the room correction software, is they don't tell you what is the target curve. All right, what is it? So what's the default curve for Anthem ARC? What does it look like?
It's a little flat, I would say, a little too flat. And so there's kind of three things that I do in every ARC cal that I run in either one of my rooms. It's basically the same thing. Bump the room gain, which brings some of that back end or low end kind of sweep up. Still add a little bit of deep bass boost for the kind of the lowest frequencies. And then I do like a -2 dB tilt. And what that ends up doing, see if I can draw this the right way, right, is a nice kind of sweep down and then a general tilt down through the highs. And I also correct a little further out, for better or for worse. I think some people argue like, should you correct lower frequencies or higher?
Sure.
I find that I have a little more of an aversion in sound to high frequency noise. Like, I don't like out of the blue, really intense, screechy, harsh highs. So I go ahead and I let Anthem correct a lot further out, and particularly for my mains as well. Although I think it's good practice if you have an acoustically transparent screen, you wanna have the software correct out a little further, because then in the higher, that's where the screen has more of an impact on the sound that's coming through it. But effectively, yeah, basically what I've done is kind of my best effort to reproduce a Harman style curve, where you've got almost 10 dB or so between the lowest low and your highest high, and it's just sweeping nice smoothly down.
So I actually talked to Dr. Floyd Toole the other, I don't know, maybe a week or so ago. And I kind of mentioned that. I already knew what he was going to say about it. But he was like, he's a little more colorful on the phone with his language. But he's like, about the Harman curve, he specifically said there is no target. Like, we didn't design that as a target curve. This is something that we were doing that kind of came up as a result of testing the JBL M2 in various rooms. And so we noticed that this is the curve. But unless you have JBL M2 and it's in those rooms that they tested in, he was kind of like, he didn't like the idea of people using it as a target curve specifically. Even though if I were to guess, right, I had no idea of your speaker or your room, and I said, you have to guess at what ideal target curve should be. It'd probably be my go-to as far as a guess.
Right, starting point, yeah.
But the problem is that's an average of various rooms. So one room could be very different, another one could be, just they can all be very different. And I think the idea is to find the right target curve specific to your room. So that's something that I'm working on, because I know that a lot of the automatic room correction software does not figure that out. Yeah. Doesn't figure out what your target curve should be. They're kind of like, here you go. Here's some tools for you to figure it out. I'm like, I don't know if they know either. Like, I don't know if how do most people know what their target curve should be? I don't know. I think that's what they rely on the room correction to do. So anyway, we'll see. Hopefully I'll have something to show you guys soon.
Yeah, there's a lot too between the last gen version, Michael, that you were using, and the current one, the 20 series to the 40 series. Now there's like the auto phase measurement and correction and auto delay. So there's a whole bunch of subwoofer integration capabilities that are there now that weren't there before. So I think you'll find a very profound difference.
Cool. Yeah, because one thing I want to do is when I review it, I want to remove the mini DSP, because I just want to see, all right, what is this thing going to do just by itself? Because most people, at least starting out, that's what they're going to do. They're going to buy a unit, they're going to run the auto calibration, and they're going to see how it sounds in their room. They may make some tweaks, dive into it a little bit, but really that really small percentage, take it a step further and get like a mini DSP and go down that route and start measuring with REW. And but yeah, I'm excited, man. It's just fine. The hard part, and I know all of us struggle with this, is finding the time, because we all have these other projects that we're doing. I've been traveling literally across the world. There's always something else, and just finding that time to, and plus, you may have sometimes 10 different products in for review or more. So then that's always challenging as well. So, but I'm excited, man. Should be fun.
Yeah. One of the things I really need to do, and maybe I'll get to it over the holiday week coming up here, is try to get down in my room and move my subs around a bit. Because I've got some nulls, like 50, 60 hertz nulls. And, according to what Genesis says it's doing, it's making the corrections, and the results are kind of on target. But I'm pretty sure that correction and those filters are working hard to try to get the compensation for those nulls. And there's not really compensation for those nulls. So I got to get the subwoofers into spots that are naturally flatter for the room. And then redo everything with that tension kind of off the off the correction system and see what's different. So I plan to do that and spin out some content about that coming up.
So speaking of content, like what do you, out of all the things that you've reviewed and all the videos that you've made on your channel over the past year, is there maybe a product that kind of stood out that you're like, man, this thing was really slick. I enjoyed this, and this is just a great product?
Yeah, I would say in some ways I'm still kind of growing. The channel's still growing up a little bit, so I don't have the flow of equipment that you guys have. Although I'm starting to make some connections and hoping some more things will start coming through my hands. I did get an Epson LS12000 this year. I thought that was a really great projector, and it was fun shooting that off against my JVC NX7.
Nice.
One of the things that I tend to make a lot of content about is the Kaleidescape that I do own and I've had for a while, but I think is kind of is often a misunderstood and misrepresented piece of home theater, a platform that people have very emotional responses to sometimes. So I've really tried to cover that in a really open, broad, and kind of fair way, talking about, pros and cons. I've done a lot of stuff this year, like for the folks that are interested in like ripping their discs and setting up, DIY media servers. Did a whole bunch of like make MKV and understanding how to get the contents off a disk. So if you want to play it back in a local system like that, you can. Done a lot with like streaming bit rates as well, and kind of quantifying exactly what are we getting, from Disney Plus and HBO Max, and all that sort of stuff. So, and then
now you mentioned like ripping discs. Do you prefer something like a Plex, or do you use something like Kodi? What do you prefer there?
For the stuff that I do have ripped, I house it on a Synology along with a whole bunch of other personal files and things. And I just use Apple TVs in Infuse. I keep it pretty simple, but there's some limitations to doing that, particularly in a home theater environment, because you can't play the Atmos natively off your rips via an Apple TV and Infuse. But Kaleidescape is generally my go-to source. So anything that I keep for myself really now that I rip is just because it's like either not available on K or not, readily available on iTunes. And it's something that I specifically wanted to have access to. And it had a physical media release. There's still quite a bit like that out there. So
yeah, I saw that on Brad's channel. You were saying that you like Infuse over Plex and the Shield. Although, so I also use Infuse on the Apple TV 4K. And of course, one of the downsides, you can't do the lossless true HD, right? And so that's kind of that's. Can you? Or
so there's always like a stickler point to that. Yeah, we did this stream a week or so ago. Brad and Taurus and I talking about kind of ripping versus Kaleidescape, but I think the thing that people misconstrue with Apple TV and Infuse is you can get lossless audio, right? But you can't get lossless Atmos or DTSX audio. So what Infuse does, and I think one of the unique pieces or elements of that software, but you have to buy the Pro version. If you have the Pro version, right, inside every Dolby Atmos track on a disc is like a 7.1 True HD core, and inside every DTSX audio track on a disc is like a DTS 7.1 master audio core. And so Infuse takes the core audio, throws the Atmos metadata and the DTSX metadata away. It decodes those two codecs to lossless 7.1 PCM, and the Apple TV will output that. So you're getting lossless audio. You're not getting it as bitstream lossless audio, and that really bothers, I think, people by not having the lights and the logos and different things lit up. But fundamentally speaking, the decoding process from True HD or DTS Master Audio to PCM is a lossless decoding. It's not a fidelity drop. The 7.1 PCM is full bandwidth.
The test. So I was testing out some of the files that Chana and I made for the calibration toolkit, and that is in True HD. And so when I threw them into the Apple TV, played them in an Infuse, no sound came out. So I was like, huh, yeah.
Well, one of the things I was planning to do with I want to do the same thing with your guys' files, because my understanding from what Infuse says, their documentation, all of that stuff, and what like my receivers report is, I'll play a 4K Blu-ray rip that only has a Dolby Atmos audio track in it and I'm getting 7.1 PCM to my Anthem
Mhm.
with, full proper multi-channel, and then I just use the Dolby Surround Up mixer or whatever from there to get it back. But I was curious to try out some of your guys' files.
Yeah,
well
it's interesting because it acts differently on the computer. So when you buy Infuse, the Pro version, you can download it on your iPad, Apple TV. It's pretty cool. A little bit expensive, but if you consider you have a lot of devices, it's kind of worth it. So on my computer, it acts differently. Where if I play that same file, it just won't play the height channels or whatever it can't. It can do all 7.1. It'll do all the callouts.
Yeah.
But on the Apple TV, for some reason, just
Doesn't play anything.
every single channel. Oh my god.
Every channel sound interesting.
Crazy.
Well, I'll try it. Yeah, I'll let you know what I experienced. But Infuse should be able to take any of those and output them, as PCM. Maybe someday Apple will open it up and we'll get the whole shebang. But
maybe it's I did test it on a system with a soundbar, so I don't know if that's maybe something happened there. But the soundbar is supposed to be capable of Dolby Atmos, and when you play something from one of Apple's services, it switches over to Atmos. But yeah, it's in the bedroom, and I wanted to see what this thing was trying to kind of how soundbars work. They try to make it sound like, oh, let me do height. I want to see okay, let me see if it does a good job of that, and it just was silent. So anyway, I'm not sure.
That might have been the soundbar or something for that specific audio mode. But I'll let you know because, like I said, I'm planning to take your files, and play around with them in my theater space. So that's how I'll be doing it.
The interesting thing is, I actually played it over Plex from the the software that comes on the TV, right? So I switched it over to that, and it was able to play all the sounds except for the height. So it was weird. Anyway, we'll stay in touch and we'll kind of compare notes and figure out what it's all doing. I have on some of my notes here that you're saying that one of the things that you've been looking at lately is trying to eliminate hum or buzz from your system.
Yep.
And Aaron, you've kind of had similar issues before.
Jeremy, did you ever email me about man? You know what? I think you did actually.
We chatted about it. I think in the comments of one of the videos.
Yeah.
But
this actually happens to be sitting next to me. So what I was going to tell you was to try the Hum X. Have you tried this yet?
Yep, I have one of those actually.
Okay. Did it work for your situation or no?
He bought them all.
Yeah, I bought them all. The Hum X I've had for a while though, because I have to use a Hum X on my gaming PC.
Okay.
Or I hear buzz like crazy through my whole system when playing a game, and like the GPU of the gaming PC is working hard. Hum X eliminated that. The other noise that I'm hearing, I think, is something else, and I think I've got it nailed down now. I've done like I think 3 videos in the last couple of weeks, and I bought like these IFI power grounding things. I bought this like $200 Pangea power cable that like you can't even hardly bend the thing. It was ridiculous. Like this big around.
All right, so you're gonna start dispelling some myths.
Well, so I didn't measure, or I didn't really test any of that stuff out when I had it to see like if audio quality improved. I was just looking for kind of hiss and buzz. But ultimately, I think I've come to kind of the conclusion that the hiss that I get in the theater room is about the best that my system is able to do, and that's not necessarily problematic hiss. You really have to go by the speaker, and at regular seating distance or volume, you don't really hear it. So that was more of like an engineering challenge to say, like, what does it take to get this speaker to be dead silent? My bigger problem,
hiss or like a hum?
That's hiss. So the theater is hiss. The living room speakers are definitive buzz though. And so all of my gear is for both of my spaces is centralized in one spot. I've got like a big double rack, and so the processing, the amplification, and all that serves both rooms is there. And so the speaker wire run up to the living room is quite a bit longer. And those speakers buzz, but I've done every combination of stuff, like unplugging this, plugging into that, grounding this to that, isolating things, unplugging everything else in the rack, and nothing that I've done. And then all these other little devices and extra cables and things that I bought and nothing made any material difference. Ultimately, I think what's happening is that the speaker wire run from the rack to the living room is either like not high enough gauge, or it's running by something in the infrastructure, and it's picking up the noise, I guess. That's my latest hypothesis anyway.
Yeah, it's all experimentation. So it's funny because I went through this in my theater space. Are all of your devices, I'm assuming you're using a preamp, is it via XLR?
Yes. Yep.
All of them are XLR.
Well, there's two RCA connections in the setup. My living room subwoofers are RCA from the Anthem STR to the like triad rack amps that power them, because they're in-wall subwoofers. Unfortunately, those rack amps don't have XLR inputs, but everything in the theater is XLR. And then the main two speakers as well in the living room, still the ones that buzz, are XLR. I think Chana talking about it. This year I swapped a bunch of my cables over to the world's best Mogami 2469 wire.
Yeah, he needs a partnership with them. He always promoting Mogami. What's interesting is in my system, I was doing what you're doing, changing out everything. I was like, you know what? I have all these different devices. I try to, just for a second, a cable that's like, I guess, what do you call it? Like a ground lift, where the third prong is not connected. Just for testing. I wouldn't normally use that. I just wanted to see if that was the case. Nothing. You know what it was? An RCA cable is a little bit
loose.
A little bit loose. You know what I mean? I'm like, all that hours spent, and it was this stupid RCA cable. So anyway, that's probably a recommendation to folks. Check your RCA cables first. Make sure they're all good. And I guess that's where there is some truth to, like, I wouldn't say go spend a ton of money on RCA cables and like
decent ones.
Interconnect. Just don't use crappy ones. I think there's a difference there, right? Between you need the most expensive ones and like the ones that come. Look, these kind of came with something, right? You guys have all seen stuff.
Those are great.
Like this, right?
Hi, bro.
Yeah. You guys seen this, right? I don't know where this came from, right? But no matter what I plug this into, nothing looks wrong with it physically. But anything I plug this into automatically has noise.
Looks like they came from an old VCR.
Yeah.
It's
So
like
this is purposely buy the trash here for a reason, so I can never accidentally use these ever again. Because I just needed it quickly, just testing something. Like, what the heck? Why is this thing so noisy?
When we first built our home 15 years ago, every subwoofer I plugged in, I'd buy a subwoofer, upgrade a subwoofer, add a third subwoofer, a fourth subwoofer. They all had hum, and it was horrendous. And it wasn't until I had a friend of mine help me run a dedicated 20 amp circuit to the room and and actually even separate like my lights. So my lights were on a different circuit than all the equipment. Then the hum completely went away. But I was like Joe, I tried the little, what we call a cheater plug, where it's missing the ground, so it bypasses the ground. Definitely don't recommend that, because that's the whole point of a ground. But just doing some troubleshooting, even that didn't fix it. I never did spend the money, like $80 on the Hum X to see, but once we ran the dedicated 20. So do you have anything like that in your theater room?
Yeah, all my gear, the gear rack runs off a dedicated 20.
Okay.
In the theater room itself is another 20 amp circuit, a separate one, that runs around a little bit of our basement, because the theater room was never designed actually to be the theater room. It was going to be a gym, home gym room. So I think when we built the house, they put a 20 amp in there, assuming that like plug in like a treadmill or maybe some high current motor type of equipment. So just kind of lucked out that both circuits that serve all the gear ended up being 20s. But the only things plugged in the theater room itself are the projector and then the two subwoofers. But I think my problem, or I'm really hoping that the issue with those speakers is that speaker line that's picking up something along the way. So talking about like engineering and problem solving, I should have done the simplest thing first, which is just take the speaker downstairs and plug it in on a separate run of cable. Right? Take more variables out of it. But it's an in-wall speaker, and it's just like, I'd like to play around at the rack first before I
You need gold. You need gold.
Yeah.
I know. I think OSD sent me this a long time ago. I'm like, at a certain point now, it's like to the point where like the RCA cables are not even flexible.
So funny story, I think true story from when I first started out in this hobby, when we were getting that first 5.1 system set up, again, it's like back 2000. Tributaries was like the high-end cable, right? And they had the silver cables. Everything was analog back then, so still component video and all that. And as we were setting this stuff up, I was trying to justify to my wife like why we need to buy these expensive tributaries cables. Like, I really want all these tributaries cables.
How'd that go?
So she's like, fine, like let's do a test. So we had a friend of ours come over.
That's awesome. Let's do a
we
test.
Hooked up whatever, like VCR or cable box, something at the time, right, to the regular old TV that we had, and it's like, all right, here's a sample set of tributaries cables, and here's the ones that came like with the cable box or whatever, and they blind tested me, and I failed it miserably, but in the end, I still bought the tributaries cables.
Oh man, that's funny. That's awesome. How much were those again?
I don't know. I probably spent at least a few $100 on those cables, maybe a little more than that.
Not too bad though.
Silver component video, yeah.
I went to an audio show in Tampa, Florida Audio Expo, a couple years ago, and I walked into a room that had some really nice, high-end, real expensive speakers, and they had some $70,000 pair of speaker cables. Of course, they were on the risers, and that made it sound even better. But holy cow, I'm thinking 70 grand. Like, at what point do you dislike money that you're just willing to just donate $70,000 for?
There's gotta be somebody out there. There's one person.
I get
There's
it.
that one guy.
I went to a guy's house actually, and he's got tons of money. I mean, this guy is very, very wealthy. And he had they were really cool cables. I'll be honest with you. I mean, they're, like you said, they're stinking massive. I think they said now this is where the marketing hype comes in. They infuse oxygen or something like that into the cable.
Hyperbaric.
Yeah, it was crazy, man. I mean, they look really cool. And I'm all for, if somebody wants to bling out their system and have some cool looking cables with some really cool connectors and really thick cables, go for it, man. It's your money. You worked hard for it. I'm not going to tell you how to spend your money. It's tough for me when manufacturers make claims that this fancy, expensive, high dollar cable is going to elevate your sound exponentially, and you're going to hear things that you can't hear with a $50 cable or a $20 cable or a $100 cable.
For sure. Aaron, you're kind of quiet over there.
Man, I'm just watching.
Coding MATLAB.
Watching, man.
He's coding. Nothing from the infused. I thought we were gonna hear something.
What?
The infused cables.
Y'all are crazy. I don't even know what y'all are talking about.
Well, that's what you're gonna have to use if you get those McIntosh amps.
I refuse to use fused cables. Ooh.
Look at that.
You got lamp cord, you know it.
I do. I don't have lamps. I just have lamp
Coat hangers.
Coat hangers. I actually did get word that they're sending out the amp and the processor. Said they shipped it today.
Nice, man.
Yeah. So now I'm just waiting on Audio
some
Precision
toys
to get
play with. What are you going to hook up to them? Your JBLs?
I don't even know, dude.
Okay.
I have no idea.
He's like, I just got some cool toys. We're gonna look at it, man.
I don't even care.
We'll do an unboxing.
I'm just gonna put a 4-ohm dummy load on it and just watch the needles.
Watch the needles. Yeah.
Yeah, that's all I'm gonna do.
We'll do 4 unboxing videos of it. It'll be awesome.
Said they'll be strapped to a pallet and shipped via freight.
Wow.
Truck will have a lift gate to facilitate unloading. Yeah, the amp is like, let's see how much.
Very heavy. Is it?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's like 100 and something pounds, but I don't know. Sure. Now I'm curious. I told you I've been working on my deadlift. So
was it about 600 watts a channel? 450?
450 by 2.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is that 8 ohm? 4 ohm?
That is, well, so it's regulated, I believe. And so that would be, I think, 2 to 8 ohm.
So what does that mean? You say it's regulated.
So that means the power supply is regulated to provide the same amount of power at any load.
Okay. So
I believe.
Okay, that makes sense. So like some amplifiers are rated, let's say 300 watts continuous in an 8 ohm load, and it may jump up to say 350, 400 watts
Sure.
or something like that, or more.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So,
yeah.
but it keeps it constant. Interesting.
Right.
I don't think I've ever heard of those.
And then McIntosh rates their amplifiers with dynamic headroom. So I'm curious to see how that would test out. You know, so they say it's got 3 dB of dynamic headroom. I don't know if that counts on top of the 450 per channel, or if that's somehow factored in. You know, like that could be some kind of weird marketing thing. I don't know.
Nope. Do you have some equipment to test the power?
Well, I'm trying, man.
Trying to
I'm
get something? Okay.
Yeah, I'm working with Audio Precision. I'm going back and forth, sharing emails with them about pricing and
Cool.
stuff like that. So, yeah, we'll see, man. I'd like to start doing that. And
Nice if they could even loan you one or
115
something.
pounds. Yeah,
115
that would be
pounds.
nice. But we'll see. I'm working on some stuff in the background. Hopefully it'll pan out.
So, Aaron, you invited Jeremy on. Well, how'd that conversation go? I'm kind of curious. Like, how'd that go? You sure you want to be on this? I don't know.
No, I thought you were talking about the one today. Did I tell you about the one today, Jeremy? How did that go? So Jeremy had emailed me, and I'm sorry, I reached out to Jeremy last Monday and asked him if he wanted to be on. He said sure, and then scheduling conflicts. Basically, Joe was like, I don't like the guy. Let me vet him first, and then so I said we'll have to cancel.
Hey,
so then we went to today.
I would say if I did, I'd let everybody know, and
That's
everybody would know.
exactly right.
Oh.
So
If I
then
go
this
dark,
morning, I messaged Jeremy via text because Jeremy had texted me. So I'm messaging this person, and what do I say here? Let me just pull it up because it's funnier when I just actually look at the real deal. Oh, I deleted it. Well, so I said to this person, hey, we're all good for tonight. Just send me your picture for a thumbnail. Joe needs it, to make a thumbnail out of it. No reply. I thought, that's kind of weird. It'd been read. And then I followed it up with just a picture of your mug, nothing fancy. No reply. So then I email him and I tell him the same thing. I was like, hey, I don't know if you saw my text, blah, blah, blah. And then he texts me and he says, hey, this is the right number. I put the wrong number on my email.
That's awesome. Dude.
Oh no.
Oh no.
Yeah. And then he asked me so what, he said, what kind of kids were you soliciting photos from, or what kind of photos were you soliciting from children? I was like, oh no.
Oh man.
It's pretty funny.
Yeah.
Surprised
mix
didn't
the
get
numbers
some
up.
other photos, man.
Yeah, I'm gonna play dumb if that person's parents call me tonight.
So yeah,
Anyway.
Jeremy, what kind of goals I guess do you have for your channel? Like, what are you hoping to do?
So I've been, again, kind of pretty ecstatic with the growth. Every time I think like, oh, maybe I'll hit a certain milestone by whatever month, or it always seems to keep accelerating. I even just a little bit ago thought I'd maybe hit 5K by the end of the year, and then hit 5K in whatever early-ish, mid-ish November. So it's I think there's a couple of goals, like just I think building community and building relationships around this hobby has been really a paramount. But like, again, just like effect of like being here, meeting you guys, making friends. I've gotten out like around Michigan area and gone and toured people's rooms and made so many connections with other folks around the country too, businesses and all that. So I really want to build the brand up in that sense. I want to keep building the channel itself, the viewership and all of that. It'll definitely still be a side gig for me because the day job is pretty solid. But I could see doing this for a long time. I think this is like taking a hobby that I've enjoyed by myself for a long time and just enjoying it on a completely different level, like connected and sharing it and being able to do the stuff that I've done with my spaces and things that I've learned and making content about it and sharing it, and then inspiring people to maybe benefit from either some good learnings that I had or avoid some mistakes that I made. I try to keep all my stuff pretty candid. So yeah, I don't know. I kind of see like this whole brand as something to really keep investing into for the long haul. And
You've been talking to Michael too much, I think.
Yeah.
With the
Why is
brand. I heard you say that for building the brand.
Yeah.
It is. I mean,
It's cool.
it really is.
Yeah.
Like
No,
having
I don't even consider. I don't think of my channel like that personally. I know it's a little bit off topic, but yeah, I don't really consider. I just make videos. I just happen to like review stuff that I'm interested in. I don't see it so much as a. I don't know. I don't look at it as a business so much, even though this is my main thing. So maybe I should. But I think it's just that it opens up the door to do other stuff. So when Chana and I made this calibration toolkit, we had a built-in audience of people who were kind of interested in what we're doing. And so it was just in line with my interests. So it wasn't so much how, my main focus is not like, oh, how do I grow my channel?
No.
That wasn't my specific goal. I just try to make videos that I'm proud of. And that's basically it,
I think the growth of the platform comes from just doing exactly that, like doing something that you're passionate about, right? And you're having fun with. All of that stuff translates when all of us talk about these things and share the stuff that we're doing, and like all the other elements come as a result of that. Like growth isn't it's a byproduct of everything else. It's a byproduct of time and effort and energy and learning and growing and sharing and all that stuff. But I agree with that, though. Like you don't see it that way. Like you definitely are. You are your own thing, and having these things that we kind of hold and own and curate and manage and grow. To me, it's a lot of fun. I see maybe it's like the engineering side and like the business development side, but I find like tackling YouTube as like a puzzle. Solving the puzzle of understanding what works and what doesn't work, and what what's resonating with people and what's not resonating with people. And I find a lot of interest in that. But long term, like I can see doing this for a good ways to come, and getting my kids more involved and helping my son with his stuff. There's just sky's the limit. I think.
How old's your son?
He's 9.
See, that's crazy even to think about. Just 10 years ago, somebody trying to use like an online platform to build any kind of business and be able to work from home. I mean, that was so few and far between. But now, through technology, through social media, it allows pretty much everybody. I always tell everybody, I think everybody has an audience. I mean, because think about it, there's some goofy people, including myself, on YouTube, and I don't know who you're pointing to, buddy.
Oh, I meant to point up.
He went that way and it went the opposite way.
Well,
But,
see, for me, it points that way. Sorry.
Yeah. But the reality is that we all have passions, and we all have interests. We all have stories. We all have, things that we've learned over the years. And there's always a group of people that is interested in those things. Maybe they're wanting to learn some things that you've learned over the years, or they're looking to not make the mistakes that you've made. And to see that your son at such a young age doing that, sharing what he loves and he's passionate about, and it allows him an opportunity to express his creativity. I love that, man. And, not everybody wants to make a business out of this. Sometimes people just want it to be a hobby, and that's phenomenal. That's wonderful. For me, I was trying to figure out, okay, how can I serve my family, serve the community, share my passion,
and make that money.
The money, here's the thing. If you pursue what you love and you do it well with excellence, the money will come. That it's when people focus on the money, that's when the money doesn't come.
That's why I said I don't even look at the numbers. Like, you guys, I'm not even joking. We've been working on this for a long time, and the whole point is do the best you can. Sometimes the money or the numbers is a distraction, actually. Maybe you're impressed with the number. So what does that mean? You got to go relax now? No. Or you're not impressed with the number. The number's not what you expected. So now you're like, just always do your best. Yeah. And I really believe it'll follow.
Yeah.
Success can't keep away. Right? If you do a great job, you're doing great things. People like it.
Yeah. And if you're true and authentic,
that's what I told Chana.
I think our audiences are smart enough. They can see through the BS, and they can see through those that aren't genuine and in it for, the true passion of it. Yeah. So I think that plays a big role in it as well.
I don't think any of us would be talking about any of these things if we didn't really, like it. Right. It's the total intersection.
4 years ago, I was doing this for free, and I was loving it.
Mhm.
And I was excited that 100 people watched my video. I'm like, dude, this is crazy. People are asking questions, and then it begins to grow, and you're like, really? Like, people actually are interested in what we have to say. This is weird and kind of different. But I love I try to be creative. Now, my video edits I think they're pretty basic. I don't have, like my friend, and you've connected with him, Brad, Home Theater Gamer. We've had him on the podcast here. He went to film school. That joker does color grading, and his video edits are really, really complex. And I look at mine, and mine are like, they're just straight simple. But to me, it still is an opportunity for me to try to get creative on, for me. I'm not trying to compete with Brad and be his creative and build montage. He gets really kind of, again, his projects may take him a week to edit a video, but he puts a ton of animation and this and that. And I don't try to be them. I just try to be me and tell my story and share my experiences.
Yeah.
But Ad's got a ad band, or what is it? Ad Barnes.
See, like example of just doing what you enjoy and not worrying about success so much. Like right now, Hobie's from Monolith specifically is texting me. That's cool, right? Like, if I was outside of this, that would be pretty awesome to be able to talk to the guy who makes all the products. Yeah. And so I don't take those things for granted. And the other day, we got a message from Cal Rubinson. I don't know if you guys know who that is, but I saw him. I'm like, who is this guy? Seen a lot of his posts on AVS, and like for a long time, he has a hat on, like, and it was always, whenever I saw his name on the forums, I knew that there was a pretty legit answer that went along with it, right? Never have I seen an answer like, that sounds weird. So anyway, I got to talk to him the other day because he was interested in the calibration toolkit. I'm like, that is cool.
That's cool.
That's a cool thing. So I don't know. There's stuff that's not necessarily monetary. It's just cool to be able to talk to people who are into it, and everything kind of works out.
I think anytime, it's still like a Dave Ramsey-ism, I think, right? You take the intersection of something that you're knowledgeable and passionate about, and apply some creativity to it, right? And stuff like this comes out, and from there, it's a whole lot of fun, I think.
Yeah, a little Venn diagram right there. I would also add to that Venn diagram, if it's something that somebody else can find useful, that's also good. It's sad when somebody's like really good at something, they enjoy it, and nobody else is interested in it. It's like, doesn't work. So yeah, if it's useful to somebody else, it's always a good thing.
I think people in this hobby need to stick together too. I always go back to this one thought. I did a rush of polls on the channel sometime back in the summer, but one of the questions I asked anyway was like, how do you usually use your theater, right? By yourself, with a significant other, kind of with a family or with friends? And I don't know how many answers there were. I think some, maybe a few thousand or so replies. It was like 70% by myself. And it's like, wow.
Interesting.
Like
that's the reason
people need friends in this hobby. Yeah,
sure.
That's the whole reason why we created this Daily HiFi. Not for anything else, but it can be a lonely job to review products.
Yeah,
right? It doesn't require anybody else but you, your thoughts about this particular product. Then you got to go make a video. In my case, and Aaron, we got to go measure it. None of those are team efforts.
Yeah.
Right?
I wish.
And so that's why I've tried to reach out, especially like the guys that were kind of new to this, and I'd been doing it for a year or 2 years or 3 years, and now going on 4 years, and it's like, I want to be a resource. If there's anything that I can do, and Joe does the same thing. Chana did that with me when I first came on the scene, and that's part of the fun, is the relationships. I know for me, I love doing home theater tours. I love playing with cool gear, but the most beneficial and the most rewarding to me is really the friendships and the relationships that I met, online. The guys in the chat, many of them, we've jumped on a phone call. We've got Patreon, we've got physical events that we do, like M-Wave. We go to Audio Advice Live. We've got the Summit AV. There's all these ways that we connect with people, the after show. And it's those types of things, really, that's the most rewarding for me, is building those relationships, getting to know brands and the heartbeat. We had Hobie on last night on my podcast, and hearing his heartbeat for, the hobby and kind of where Monoprice and where Monolith came from and where his vision was, so that's pretty cool to me.
Yeah. We got a super chat right here. Mark says, thank you for the super chat, by the way. Dirac preferred only because of its target curve, question mark.
I think there's probably more to Dirac that people like. If you're asking why do people prefer it, is that what he's saying?
Yeah, why do I recommend it? How about that? I can say I recommend it for people because I think it does a good job of the things that maybe some of the other ones don't do as well, which is, I think all of them can pretty much do time alignment,
distance,
so that's distance based, levels, right? Get about the same levels. Those are basic things. Actually, Odyssey didn't used to, I don't know if it still does, but it miscalculated the distance a little bit. Not sure if they fixed that yet.
Mine's always been pretty accurate on distance.
It had a error in the calculation of if you use their if you plug directly into the AVR, but if you use multi-QX, it does it correctly. So it's kind of a weird thing, but anyway,
I never had issue.
Yeah, I mean it really is like, I don't know if it's a known thing. It miscalculates it. So Dirac did it correctly, and it does something extra in that it does phase alignment, right? So I don't know that the other ones necessarily do that. I'm pretty sure that Odyssey does not do it in the same way that they do it, which is using, so Junior OG says here, impulse correction. So impulse response gives you phase information that you can use to align the phase within the speaker itself, right? So if there's a crossover, does something weird, you can kind of try to correct that. But it's also helpful in summing your main speakers with the subwoofer. So you can time align them, but it doesn't mean that they're going to have the same slope and have good summation at the crossover point. And so I think Dirac has done a good job of all those things, that I think are kind of like basic things that everything should do. As far as the target curve, that's actually, I've had the guys over, I've had Nilo, was former CEO and one of the founders of Dirac, him and Barack, their senior engineer. They were here for 4 hours, I think, 3 or 4 hours. And, my thing that I kept telling them is, I think you could do a better job of the target curve. So this is exactly what I said earlier. And I think before they used to have a downward sloping curve. I don't know how did you do it?
It's back.
What you say?
Is that the right direction? No, that's not.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, there you go.
It was just a downward sloping line for the most part. That was their target curve for a long time. Now their new target curve is based on the response that it's measuring. So if the bass is up a little bit, it kind of says, all right, this is the starting point and the treble is down. Okay, this is the starting point. Now, do you want to move it up or down from here? All right. I think that's a good idea. I think that's better than what they used to do. But still, I think there's still room for improvement. Right. But I think it's way better starting point. The other ones, I think Odyssey, I think they use a modified version of the X curve, which I would not recommend. I would not recommend that for anybody. If the default was something like a Harman target, like we mentioned earlier, I think that's a decent starting point, but still not correct. It's just less wrong than some of the other ones. I think that's the point, is less wrong is not the same as correct. So would you, I don't, so answer is no. I don't recommend it because of its target curve. I recommend it because of all the other things that it does correctly.
Yeah.
Anybody else?
I would say that I put those kind of systems into bins with each other. I consider there kind of be three layers of that, right? And they get better based on the complexity of the algorithms and the sophistication of the code in terms of both what it's calculating and doing, and then the devices that it's going into to apply that stuff. And so, Odyssey, or base Odyssey, before they did the couple $100, more powered version at least, and Yamaha YPow, those kind of fit into the one echelon. And then I think like Dirac, Anthem ARC, maybe like Lindorf. There's a few other more proprietary ones are kind of in the next up, next level up, and then you're into Storm and Trinnov territory and whatever. And so,
well, Storm uses Dirac, right?
I thought they did a little more though. Like
they have bass control, Dirac live bass control.
Okay.
But so like HTP1, I think they kind of have a similar Dirac there. I think it's funny. I watched your video when you're doing the Trinnov one, and I think you mentioned like, why is this taking so long? I'm using this new this new M1 or Mac. Why is this processing taking so long? And I just thought that was kind of funny because it's true. Like this thing is super powerful, and I think a lot of these room corrections you were talking about how it's based on processing power also, but a lot of them are kind of like static. Like they run it once, and it's not doing anything dynamic. It doesn't require. I guess. Let me make sure I'm saying the right thing.
Kind of setting the parameters, and
a lot of
that, no matter what content's coming in.
A lot of folks use their computer with like not multi-cell optimizer. What is a equalizer APO, something like that, where they can run crazy filters. What's the filter that's hard to do, Aaron?
Maybe all pass or something, or biquad.
Infinite impulse response is the one that's harder.
IIR.
Yeah, that's the one that's harder to do because
So always get flip flopped, but I'll go with your vote on that one.
Yeah.
I can never remember which one is which. Yeah.
So a lot of dudes like to do stuff like that where they're not just doing equalization, but they're kind of using convolution to fix the response, and that's processor intensive. You need a computer to be able to do that. So maybe Trinnov is actually a computer.
Oh, it is, yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Actually, you bring up a good point too. And I can't remember which one is which, but Dirac uses like one for low frequency and the other one for higher frequency. So it appropriately allocates the memory and uses the better one appropriately, I guess.
Yeah.
So,
there's Chana.
oh, there she is.
I already pop in.
He's driving.
What's up, buddy? You done for the night?
Hey, what's up? I finished one job. I got another job in 6 hours.
Got it.
So
Get you some
All
rest.
right.
yeah,
Yeah, man.
what's going
Good
on?
seeing you. So you keeping track of those sales or what?
Trunk's empty.
I didn't hear it. It was breaking up.
You keeping track of those sales or what?
Oh yeah, no, it's doing well. Woo! Holy crap!
See?
Everybody that's supporting is awesome, and then people that have downloaded it are saying a lot of great things. So pretty exciting.
They don't believe me that I'm not looking at the numbers.
Nope.
I'm not even
Oh,
on there.
Joe's not looking at the numbers. I get
don't
alerts
believe
on my
you either.
phone.
He's got he's got alerts.
Yeah.
So if you did buy it, thank you, but I don't know. So I don't know the names back there. I don't know who's
Yeah,
buying.
and for those that did buy it, Joe and I are already working on an update for some of the files, make them better, for you guys. So that's what I'm working on tonight.
Yeah, I like that you guys had because somebody had asked when you guys were doing the live stream, and I liked y'all's answer that the reason you were waiting was mainly because, at least from what you said, at least as far as I understood it, was mainly because you wanted to make sure that everything was good and get some user feedback on the downloads before you went and made the CDs and started shipping them out. That way you wouldn't have to try to do any takebacks. I thought that
Chana's been at it for like how long? The past couple of days. He's like, I've been in my PJs for the past 3 days
Oh,
working on the
dude,
files.
I was like, I know, I was in my PJs. I was in the same clothes for like 3 days, just sitting at the dining table, and then break to walk the dogs, break to eat, back at the dining table with both computers, trying to get it out fast for you guys. So yeah.
Yeah, it's just we constantly come up with things like I was saying. Infuse wasn't playing the file, right? We were talking about that, Jeremy, like how it was. So I'm like, hey, we need to include a Dolby Digital Plus with JOC, right? Just don't do HD. We need to include that in case, sometimes I just want to test it out on a soundbar. I want to see what happens and different things.
Yeah.
So I may not have a shield right there. So what do? I bought it.
So we're gonna offer a lossy version. Whoa! Black eyes. All right, I gotta get out of here.
Hey.
Jeremy, thanks for coming on the show. Too bad we couldn't talk. See you guys later.
Yeah, bro.
Bye.
Oh man, what a character. So somebody else said thank you for staying on topic, and it's because Chana's not here. That's why. It's somewhat on.
That's funny.
But yeah, where were we? Oh yeah, we're talking about Dirac using different version FIR and infinite impulse response for different parts, and I think it's the bass that requires the most processing power because they're trying to do like real. They're trying to be very precise, in that area. I may have that mixed up also, but also there's also negative effects to using those. Right, you get pre-ringing, which you don't want, and I think that may be more obvious in certain frequencies. So they kind of break it up so that they use the best use of the processing power and the least unwanted effects from both. So I don't know. I need to go back and read the paper, but it's all there. What else? What else we got here? Anything else? Take that. There was this question earlier. Anyone use REW to EQ speakers after running Dirac Odyssey in the AVR? Mm-hmm. So, Aaron, I need your help on this one because I've noticed that. Have you ever done this? Have you ever done a correction and then saw it wasn't perfect? You know what? And you had another slot. Let's say you could layer on another set of corrections. And usually it's not, my experience, it's not what you expect to happen, right? So you have this correction that's close to perfect, and you're like, you know what? Let me add just a little bit more correction on top of it. Not changing the original correction, but layering on another correction based on after measurements. And what I found is it's not the result that I expect to see because I'm stacking filters.
Yeah,
you over process.
What have you noticed?
Over process. I don't know, but like most of the time, if I run Dirac, I will EQ everything first, right? Like I'll try to get everything pretty tidy, and then let Dirac run and do its business. But it's rare that I go back. Actually, in my car, I will say that I've gone back on mid bass and try to fix some things because I don't think it works as well in the car, which we've talked about this before. For a couple reasons, at least from like maybe the 100 hertz to 300 hertz region. So I have gone back and re-EQ'd in that particular area, but for a home, you don't have the same issues that drives the problems that are caused in the car. So I haven't had to go back and really do anything after I run Dirac. Like I say, usually what I'll do is I'll just EQ stuff before, right? Like I'll say, I can go ahead and take that out. It's a big peak somewhere or something. I'll just go ahead and take that out. I'm not going to let Dirac try to fix that when it's got other crap I want it to focus on. So that's kind of my mindset.
Any experience with that, Jeremy?
So I actually haven't really fired up REW. I need to pick up a mic because I'd be very interested to run like some of the decay time measurements in my room and see where those are coming out. But I've been pretty happy with Anthem ARC, and I've just kind of stuck with it. Well, the other thing that's kind of prevented me from even, I guess, bothering to pick up is ARC Genesis has its own quick measure. So if you kind of want to run a sweep without correction applied, the software lets you do that as well. So I'll play around with that because the subs I have are some Arndal Sound 1723s. They have their own PEQs, and I've tinkered with like using some of that ahead of using ARC versus not engaging any of those and just letting ARC do everything. I'd say most of the results have kind of come out fairly equitable, but yeah, it's something that I need to play with more because I think there are some more. There'd be some advanced measurements in REW that would be neat to see the results of in my space that I haven't played with yet.
Yeah, did you just say MySpace?
Only
I'll be posting on MySpace. I'm leaving YouTube to go to MySpace.
Perfect.
Yeah, so I guess to answer the question, my personal recommendation is to not stack digital filters because you may get an unintended consequence.
Yeah.
Because
So I've run into where you can create other issues and doing not necessarily stacking them, but having filters that are maybe too close to another one. And the other thing that I sometimes have noticed too is that, and it's not always the case, but it's occasionally where I've run into, like, if I use a steep notch filter in like the sub bass, mid bass area, that sometimes it actually sounds worse. You know, like I'll convince myself that it sounds better, and then maybe I'll come back a day or two or whatever later and listen, and then I'll think, man, that don't sound right, and then I'll un-EQ that one band, you know, and then it actually sounded better than it did before, because I was just going off of what was on the screen and I wasn't taking the time to really listen to it, and for whatever reason that filter wasn't the appropriate filter. And I've also found that, and this is contrary to what I would normally think and maybe even recommend, is that wider Q. So typical graphic EQ is like a Q of 4 or 4.3. That's the bandwidth. And then parametric EQs can go anywhere from like a 0.5 all the way up to teens, 20s, whatever. And basically the lower the number is, the wider that EQ band is. So if you wanted to EQ down at like 300 hertz, if you've got a 0.5, then that 300 hertz is also going to go out to maybe 1 kilohertz and 100 hertz or something. It's going to be very wide, so it's going to affect a lot of other stuff around it. But if you have the Q, the bandwidth set to maybe 20, well, it's going to focus right on about 300 hertz, and it may hit 302 and 298, but it's going to be like really tight right on that band. So going back to what I was saying was that I found that using maybe a wider Q of like a graphic EQ of like a 4 or something sometimes tends to work better in the mid bass area, which I'd say like 80 to 300 hertz, than a narrow Q of maybe 10 to 20 or something like that. So I would recommend that if you are EQing based on REW, like your screen only, to make sure to go back and listen as you make adjustments. So make an adjustment, play a test track, and it's kind of a cheap plug for what Joe and them do, or you can just play a test tone or whatever. Go back and listen and see if you like that change before you start going to the other frequencies. Because it's really easy to see all these things on the screen and just start EQing stuff like crazy, and then listen to it an hour later and think, well, that doesn't sound right. And you have no idea why it sounds bad, because you've got 20 bands of EQ all within a few, octaves of each other. So that's my word of advice.
So here's from just experience, right? So with a mini DSP, you have PEQs that you can put on the input area, right? So you have like, your left and right input. You can put PEQs into each one of those, right? And you can also, where most people put it is on the output side, right? Where it shows you the 4 subwoofers or whatever you have connected, and each one of those has its own PEQ. Mm-hmm. So one thing I tried before was, okay, so, let's just say I'm doing 1 subwoofer. So you do this equalization, right? You put the PEQs into the output section. Now you go and you measure it and you're like, you know what? All right, that looks pretty good. It looks better than what I had before. But you know what? I want to make it a little bit better. So, my thought was, well, I still have the input PEQ. What if I just change that just a little bit to make it even better, right? And a lot of times it made it worse. So why does that make sense? And I think it's because I measured something acoustically, right? It's the effect of that speaker and the room and whatever's happening in the room. I fixed it with a digital correction and then measured again acoustically, right? So if I add another digital correction on top of that, it's not doing what I thought it was going to do. What is actually happening, and when I say stacking corrections, is those 2 corrections, the one that I made before and the one I made after, is making a new filter, right? Mm-hmm. And that filter is maybe a filter that I would have never used, right? If we're to actually look at what the filter is, we'll be like, yeah, no, that's a no. I'm not going to use that filter. It looks horrible. But that's actually the filter that's applied to the signal at the end of the day, right? It's not out and then,
right. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I think that's what's happening, and that's why I don't recommend doing it twice. I think you want to measure once and make a correction on that.
I say measure twice, cut once.
That's right. I was thinking the same thing.
Does that make sense though? What I said? I don't know.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
It's just you're adding 2 filters. I mean, when you don't necessarily need to. It's very rare that I've seen a case where I thought 2 filters, stacked like you're saying is necessary, unless maybe it's like, you only have so much attenuation available for one particular filter, or maybe you have a couple bands that for whatever reason they're right next to each other, so it makes more sense to maybe put a wider Q on one and a more narrow Q on another. But I got to be honest, at some point I think it's so easy to split the hairs on something like that and wind up getting worse sound than it would have been if you'd have just kind of kept it simple, stupid, right? And just listened to it in between. I mean, I've run into that numerous times where I've helped tune stereo systems in cars or listen to them, and I thought, man, that phase, like you can with bass, that's one of the things that's easier for me to pick out is phase alignment and bass. And you can always, or at least I can always tell when there's something that's just not quite right if I just listen to like a handful of test tracks. Anything that has like a bass guitar in it, if it lights up the system, then something's wrong. Then you got to go figure out why. And there's been many cases where I've looked at somebody's equalization filters and been like, well, you've got like, 10 bands of EQ and they're all from 100 to 300 hertz. Like that's way too much. You don't need that much equalization. You need to go find the trouble spots and fix those, and then just use a little bit of alignment for the other ones. But you don't need to start dumping, Q of 20 for every freaking band that you see just to get everything perfect. It's going to sound worse.
I see people doing that a lot of times, like in some of the groups that I'm in, where they're showing their graphs. And it's like, and it looks perfect. It's gonna get, and they're like, no, I got to work on this one. I'm like, dude, why? Like, it's almost like a joke now. Like I joke with these guys, like, bro, how flat do you want that thing? How perfect does it need to be?
And then what happens as soon as they move over to the next seat?
Yeah, it's gone.
Like it all goes out the window. But 70% of us only listen by ourselves.
Yeah, so who cares? I think it's just the fun of doing it sometimes.
Well, I say we all just need to learn to live with sound bars. Forget everything else.
Wow.
Oh man. So yeah, hopefully that answers that question here. Let me get this. Yeah, this is your channel, right?
That's
Jeremy
it, yeah.
Pyle.
Yes,
That was
sir.
my first subwoofer, Pyle subwoofer.
No
So
relation.
yeah, which one of your videos is the best performing one? Let's take a look.
Oh gosh, go to the shorts.
The shorts.
Yeah, I think I got 150,000 views on me pulling the film off of my LG TV.
Really? Isn't that
That's the one.
crazy?
That's the one.
It's awesome. Yeah, scroll down a
my
little bit.
goodness.
That took a lot of work too, man.
It's there, like the third row on the right.
Yeah.
Oh, you
There it
go.
is. Peeling the film.
Yes,
That's what you got to do.
there you
You
go.
said you wanted to figure out the algorithm.
Beat
Dude,
the
gotta
algorithm.
That's your new
So
channel right
You
there.
need to peel and then do a sniff test, and I
Yeah.
guarantee you'll like explode.
The Vanna White reveal of the LG G2.
That's funny.
Other than that, I mean the legit videos, right? They're not fun for
Yeah.
fun shorts. I think some of the highest ones are, I think some of the Apple TV stuff. Yeah, this one is actually one I did really early, talking about Windows 11 gaming and HDR.
Mm.
The DirecTV Stream one's a pretty old one too, from a year ago.
So what do you think it is? What's the formula? Why did these work?
I don't know what happened with that auto HDR one. That was like a shot in the dark. That YouTube grabbed a hold of that one and just keep showing it to people. The cord cutting stuff, I think that's still a topic. I haven't really leaned into that at all. I cut cable a long time ago and used DirecTV Stream for a while. I use YouTube TV now, but
Do you spend more or less now?
well, less, but I share one as well, so
Okay.
that
All
helps.
right.
But yeah, the TV stuff. I think that Apple TV people are really interested in the devices. I'm happy with. It's interesting to see how much the Infuse app review, that one's really shot up here just recently. I think people like, again, wanting to set up media servers, stuff like that.
Yeah.
The multi-zone home theater, I think that's a pretty unique thing that I've done in my system as well, which is like run a lot of my sources to my theater, but then zone 2 things out to the living room.
Oh, yeah.
So I've done a couple of videos on that.
Zone
What's
2,
one?
baby.
What's one? This is what I asked Brad. What's one that you thought was gonna do well, but for some reason didn't do well? You know, you're like, dude, this is gonna be a hit, and it just for some reason wasn't.
I think earlier on I made a little more gaming stuff and figured that would be like an easy that those would go pretty well. But I think the gaming space on YouTube is so thick.
I did the
so
same
thick
thing
with videos and favorites.
I think 8 came out. My channel was all about home theater, but I'm like, you know what? iPhone 8, that's the buzz. I'm gonna do a review on it. It's like 30 views.
The other thing that I tried to cover a little bit when I was still doing a little more of the multi-tech stuff is I've always been a comic book fan. I got the whole shirt on here. And so like reading digital comics and stuff like that, I was over the summer, I threw some content out about that, like Comixology and, using some of those services, and those just kind of dropped like duds on the floor.
And that's why it's important to just enjoy yourself, right?
Yeah.
It's a time gonna happen, and you're like, whatever. For the few people who watch it, they're very thankful, right?
Yeah.
For the very few people, like, dude, I'm so happy you made this. Like,
I was doing like weekly. Marvel Comics has their like Marvel Unlimited subscription services. So if you want to read Marvel comic books, you want to read them on your iPad or whatever, like you can't beat Marvel Unlimited. So they put new books out every week or whatever. So I'm like, I'll do like a weekly Marvel Unlimited update, talk about this, have some fun with it. And like those hardly went anywhere, but I still had a couple people. It's like, I thought the update was coming today. It's like, well, yeah, you and your 3 friends.
Right.
I think I might not be making these going forward though.
Rough stuff. Yeah, man. Well, it's good having you. I'm actually, I want to know more about how you use the zones, because this is one of the questions that I saw here. Sean was like, are we done with zone 2 yet? Like, he's not about the zones.
You guys know where I stand. Zones are
where you like it. You like the zones, and hey, I'm open to, figuring out something to do with them. Actually, you know what I think would actually be cool with the zones is if you could binauralize the multi-channel stuff that's coming in through those two. So, all right, so I got, this movie, and I'm going to listen to this on headphones or something. I want to hear a binaural version of that to kind of still get the spaciousness. That might be a use. So
my multi-zone was more of a cost save, I guess. Because I don't want to buy another Kaleidescape Strato, but I'd like to be able to play Kaleidescape in both the rooms. So zone 2 HDMI running the same sources through
like
one.
Duplicated. That makes sense.
Yeah, and all of the new stuff, pretty much that has like a zone 2 video output. They're basically matrix switchers. Yeah. Right. So you plug all your stuff into one main zone, and then you can matrix switch that out to a second zone. It works great.
That makes sense.
Save me $4,000.
Yeah, so I see. So you wanted to watch it in a different room, and you didn't want to spend extra. Exactly. That makes sense. That makes sense to me. Anything else? Anything else you want to talk about? Anything else you want to plug while you're here? Thank you for being on.
Yeah. No, I mean, I really appreciate the opportunity. It's funny, like, I've followed so many people now that I followed as a viewer. I'm meeting and getting to know and making friends with and all that. So I just really appreciate kind of being brought into the club and having the opportunity to talk this stuff. So
yeah. Well, we have fun. We're gonna have some more fun on the after show. So I don't know if you have a chance to stick around. I'm gonna be in there just talking to you guys after show. So patreon.com/Daily HiFi. If you're a patron, we send a link every week, and we just hang out there, talk, and really make friends, right? So that's it. That's all I got. Who wants to take us out? Aaron, you want to take us out?
No,
Jeremy,
no. Come on, Aaron.
Come on, you always want to take everybody out. Let's go.
All right. So on behalf of Joe and Tell, myself, see, Michael's over there, but it could be over there. And then with our special guest, Jeremy, Techthusiasm, I want to say thank you all for watching. I hope you had a wonderful time. Have a great Christmas, and we'll see you maybe next Monday.
I don't know. We'll see what happens.
All right.
That was excellent, by the way.
Take care,
fellas. What I could have done.
I love all.
See you guys.